Julie Jewell, and you're watching Spotlight on Sparks. And today I have Chief Reid with me, and we had some exciting news about one of our engines, Engine 11 from Fire Station 1, going paramedic level emergency medical services. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so back in 2016, we started the process of putting paramedic level EMS or emergency medical services on our engines. So we started out with Station 4 and 5. Then the next year we added Station 2. The year after that, last year, we added Station 3, and so now we're down to Station 1. And so as of Tuesday the 25th, we'll be running or requiring paramedics on Engine 11 downtown at Station 1.
So why is this so important? I know you say that a lot of our calls are medical calls, not just fire calls. Is that why we are doing this?
Yeah, so an overabundance, approximately 75-80% of our calls are EMS related. And with the paramedic service, we're able to do more advanced cardiac monitoring. We're able to give more medications for cardiac related issues or pain management issues, prior to the arrival of REMSA paramedics.
So that means that now all of our stations are going to have paramedic level services available?
Yeah, so all of our stations, but we'll still have an engine and a ladder company or truck that will not be paramedic yet.
And that's going to be down the road, hopefully.
Yeah, so the plan that was put together was, start the initial 2 out north and then add 1 engine based on attrition after that.
Right, so how important do you think it is just for us as a Sparks Fire Department to have these services available to the community?
So having a higher level of paramedic services available at every station, it'll just give us that higher level for visitors, especially downtown, the Nugget, the hotel areas, and for just our residents who are down there during, our special events.
Right, so if anybody has any kind of medical situation, they can call 911, and if that engine is dispatched, they would be able to help them with any kind of medical or most medical situations that might.
Yeah, that's correct. So again, it's Engine 11, and it does have its own district, but as we are getting busier, sometimes the districts do get intermingled up. Right. And so yeah, you can have that paramedic service out of any station as of Tuesday.
Right, what a great thing, and I just know that the community has to be really thankful for that, because again, we have a lot of medical calls that aren't necessarily just fire calls that you guys get, so that's really important to be able to offer those services.
Right, and we're offering the services, but back in, I'll give kudos to Chief Garrison at the time that really did a lot of legwork, put together all the data and all the stats, and did a fine presentation to council, and then council did have to give us their approval to go forward. So it's been a little bit of everyone.
So is there anything else you want to talk about specifically about the paramedic level service?
Yeah, probably one more thing is we are going to recruit for a new testing process in early May, and as a paramedic, no firefighter requirements this time. You can't apply. You have to have either your state or your nationally certified paramedic. Yeah, the CPAT test would have to be done by the time of testing in early May, and you could work for the fire department here in Sparks.
So does that include then training? If they get hired as a paramedic, would they get fire trained on the job then?
Yes, that is correct. So depending on the education that they come in with, if they don't have any firefighting experience, we would send them to some sort of academy.
Sounds like a great opportunity.
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much for the information. I just think it's a great service that we offer here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
My next guest is Dan Dinges from RTC. He is the Interim Director of Planning. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the 2050 regional plan that you're gathering community input for.
Absolutely, yeah. So the RTC is in the process of developing our 2050 regional transportation plan, and we call it RTP for short. And we're really at the point now where we're going out to the public, really looking for their vision of what the transportation system and network can be in the 2050 horizon and time frame.
So I know a lot of people say, wow, 2050, that's a long ways away, and how can my input help? How would you answer that?
Well, as probably most people are familiar, implementing projects takes time. I mean, we want to get all ideas on the table, kind of vet them through our own prioritization process. We look at, it's a very data-driven process, so we look at kind of the demand and the benefits it could provide. But also, once a project is moved forward, it takes time to implement, because oftentimes there might be environmental work that needs to be done, environmental review, preliminary design, and so there's could be a significant time frame when the project is designed and constructed. We also have limited funding sources, so some projects that don't rank as high in priority might get put in an out year to be implemented in a later time frame.
So you're asking just kind of specific groups to give you input. How's the process working?
I'm glad you asked that. So we are trying to reach out to the Truckee Meadows as a whole. So we are doing a series of community outreach meetings, social media as well. We've got surveys in the works, trying to use all the different platforms available to us to reach the public. But with that, we're also doing more targeted kind of focus group type workshops and roundtables, looking at topics like safety. We want to engage our youth to hear from them and see issues that might be, unique to their perspective. And some others we're looking at is more geographical. So we will be looking at reaching out to the residents in the North Valleys with all the growth and employment that's happening there. So kind of across the board, really.
Right, a lot of great. I know pedestrian safety too has been kind of a huge hot topic right now. Is that something that you're looking for information on too?
Absolutely. So RTC is also a member of the Vision Zero Task Force, Vision Zero Truckee Meadows, amongst many other public agencies and private entities. And so that is a big sounding board for us in terms of getting input on projects that we could really help further along in our plan to support that initiative.
So I know a lot of people, when I'll post on social about certain public meetings coming up, and they'll say, well, does my input really matter? Is it really taken into consideration? And you say, yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah,
we do get that comment as well sometimes, but really all ideas are on the tables. Some of our in my opinion, some of our more fascinating projects really came out of public suggestion through previous public meetings we had in developing different corridor studies and that sort of thing. So no idea is too big or too small, and we want to hear all of it.
So in addition to maybe attending some of the upcoming or in the public meetings, how can people put in their input?
So as I mentioned, we'll be launching a series of surveys. And we also have kind of our general social media platforms. We have an e-newsletter that we send out, and that mailing list is growing every day. At rtcwashoe.com, our website, we have a kind of a submission form for people to put in requests, comments, concerns, whatever it may be. And we're trying to use other methods, using more kind of visual and interactive mapping and what I'm calling a story map. We're putting together a lot of different concepts like that to reach people.
Great, great. Anything else that I may have missed that you want to let the community know about?
Well, I should probably just touch a little more on social media. We have a Facebook account, a Twitter account, and although we are having public meetings, we're making more of an effort to Facebook Live those meetings. So if you can't attend in person, you're always able to watch online, and those are recorded. So even if you can't watch it live, you can go back and rewatch.
And it's at RTC Washoe, is that the?
At RTC Washoe.
Great, great. And I know you mentioned the website as well, and you can get on and sign up for some of those surveys and also for the e-newsletter.
Correct.
Great, great.
We're happy that our mailing list is growing and people are really listening and wanting to be heard.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the great information, and I know that I'll be putting in some input because I have some questions and some ideas as well. So
awesome.
I'll be putting some in, and I'll encourage people to do the same. So,
thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much. My next guest is Stacy Hemmerling. She's our budget manager. And Stacy, tell me a little bit about the City of Sparks budget.
Well, the City of Sparks is a small-sized city. Our population about just over 100,000. Our budget, the size of our budget, about $230 million. We've got 30 funds we have to file a budget for, 6 different fund types. Our process starts about in October each year and ends in June to file that budget for the next fiscal year, which starts each July 1. About 15,000 data points go into creating that budget each year.
Wow. So I know we recently held a budget workshop. Is there a reason we do that? Why did we do that?
Yes, we just recently had our budget workshop for the fiscal 21 year. that will start this July 1, 2020 and run through June 30, 2021. That workshop each year gives us the chance to give our estimates to council. We'll give our estimates for the current year and tell them what resources may be available for the next year for beyond the obligations we already have, maybe some new things they want to do or new programs they want to start.
So it's mostly for council kind of to listen to maybe some of the proposals that we have and things like that?
Yes, and a two-way street though. We will give them our estimates. The city manager will give some of his preliminary recommendations, and then council will give their direction back to city manager on what's important to them. They may give us direction on our fiscal policies, our new needs. They might prioritize the new needs differently than city manager, and city manager would want to hear that from them. Maybe the reserve levels in some of our insurance funds. They don't normally address that, but they could. They might want to forego new needs and increase reserves in various funds. And they give us some direction on capital funding.
So how do you think our budget process is kind of unique? I know I've sat through a couple of the budget workshops. I find them fascinating because there's just so much that goes into it. And how is our process just maybe a little bit more unique?
I don't know exactly how it might be unique, but what I would imagine we're unique probably in the level of participation we get from our departments. We have a budget worksheet workshop in October, the very kickoff of our process, and I think we have 40 to 50 people from every department come and participate in that. They sit for 2 hours and listen what they need to do for the next year's budget, what forms they need to fill out, who they submitted to, when they're due, and our participation is really great. I think that is probably different.
I know as managers, we're called to do some zero-based budgeting, and what is that? Can you explain? And I think that is kind of a little bit unique too, right?
Sure. It's not exclusive to City of Sparks obviously, but we probably are unique in the region in that we do this zero-based budgeting, and we have done it for several years now. This is a process whereby we, instead of maybe just taking the last prior year's budget and adding 3% and saying, here's what you get for next year, we say you get zero next year until you tell me what you need it for. And so the departments are required on, I think we've chosen 8 or so of our largest service and supplies accounts, and overtime. We throw overtime in there because it's such a large expense. So it's about $18 million worth of accounts where we say, we need you departments to tell us exactly what you need this for, item by item.
So for things like training, travel
and training, yes.
What we might need for, I know that I have a budget for video production and things like that. So we just build those budgets according to what we think we need, and then it may or may not be approved, basically.
Right. If we need to cut, we'll have detail in there to see exactly what services we're going to cut, which items. And you're right. Travel, training, professional services, equipment and furnishings. Maintenance and repairs. They're some of our largest items, and therefore we've chosen them to take this special look at. I think it's important too. It gets, again, with our department involvement, I think our departments have a better idea of what they're spending their money on than they ever would have had doing it the other way. And I get comments from them a lot about that. They have dug in, they know what they need and maybe what they don't need in their budget.
Yeah. It definitely, when I'm working on mine, it makes me think, what do I need? What's important, for my job, so that I can, do my job well and that kind of thing. So I think it's fascinating that we do that. I think it makes you really think about that.
Good.
So I was going to ask you also, what do you think some of our greatest needs are for this next fiscal year?
Well, we have the departments tell us their needs, and then I can give you what I think too. But as far as what the departments submitted, we had $7 million worth of new needs submitted for fiscal 21 year. About $5 million of that was personnel costs, and which tells me that one of our greatest needs is getting the staffing levels up. I'm still recovering from the recession and the personnel cuts that we had to take, so getting our staffing up. And now I see a real need to prevent burnout mostly in public safety. We just need to get staffing up in those areas. And city manager's preliminary recommendations have focused on that public safety staffing and many of his new needs that he's recommending. And council agrees with him on this, that we will get those staffing levels up. We can't
So police
officers, sergeants, some admin staff at police too, because it all goes hand in hand.
Right,
They
right.
need both to do their jobs. Fire Station 6 is one need. Also just how we're going to grow in this city, and we are studying this lands bill and have some large expenses for a feasibility study of growing our city out in the Copper Canyon area.
Right, so pretty interesting things that you have to consider in our financial department, significant things that you have to think about, and it has to run by council and that kind of thing. I know most of, and not all, you said there's many funds, but can you talk a little bit specifically about the general fund and the road funds? Are those two big funds that are affected?
Two big funds. So the general fund is our main operating fund. That is where we account for public safety, our central services being all of finance, my whole department, which is payroll, accounting, HR, city manager's office, all of our operating departments. This is what it's specifically not, is our business type activities. We have sewer and storm drain enterprise funds, not the general fund. We have our wastewater treatment. Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facilities is its own fund. We have development services fund, where all of our developers pay for permits and plan checking, all not general fund. We have internal service funds, our motor vehicle fund. I'm sorry, I'm telling you all the funds, but
I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting how many there are. So there is the general fund and all those funds I'm talking about. The road fund is a capital projects fund. We have several of those, but I'll tell you about the road fund. They receive about $3 million in franchise fees, electric and gas franchise fees. It receives about $3 million a year in fuel taxes. We use that money to repair and build roads, sidewalks, alleyways.
Right.
And I think we've got about all of that program for fiscal 2021. They are being pretty aggressive now in using those resources to keep our roads in good shape.
So what are some important dates that are coming up within the city of Sparks? I know we have to have budgets submitted by certain dates and things like that.
Yeah, some of the important dates I told you about, the budget worksheet workshop, that kickoff, that is mid-October. So I'm going backwards a little, but but still.
But it seems like it starts early, but there's a reason for it.
Yes, it takes a while to get all this data, to get those 15,000 data points to get them all together. So mid-October is that kickoff. Mid-December, all the new needs. I told you there was 7 million submitted for 21 that was due mid-December, so that we could start analyzing them. End of December was the rest of their budget worksheet forms, all the zero-based forms that we talked about. Then on February 24th, we had our budget workshop for the council, that first look at the budget. Then coming up is we will get final revenue projections from the state in March. That gives us a good idea of property tax and sales tax, the two biggest revenue sources for the general fund. Then our tentative budget, middle of April 15th, that is due, the tentative budget, and then the city manager's recommendations. We produce a very large book for the city manager's budget recommendations that is going to be on April 27th this year, and it is everything about what's in that budget for the next year, and we use this as a resource all year long. So that's a big date for us to have city managers' recommendations due in the April 27th. Final budget due May 26th. We're going to take that to council, and then the budget must be in the mail to the state on the 1st of June.
So it is quite the process, and it really, I mean, you have to start it early to meet every single one of those deadlines, because I know when I think, oh, fiscal 21, we've got a while for that. No, we really don't.
No,
so.
it does take that long, and some years it's very smooth, and others we're changing our minds up to last
Right.
second, and you've
Right.
got to make sure that you can accommodate all of the needs and the resources that we've projected.
And I know one of the things I wanted to ask you too is, what do you think some of the city's maybe long-term risks are, and what kind of steps are we taking to mitigate those?
Some of the risks, actually, we identify them very plainly in our fiscal policies. Our self-insurance funds are always an area of concern. Health insurance, we've built up a bit of a reserve in there and are able to get away with some really modest health insurance premium increases for our employees in the city. But one area of concern, another self-insurance fund, is workers' comp. And we have, there is legislation, heart, lung cancer legislation for public safety workers that is just causing very large claims costs. And the upside of that liability is so high that we need to be ready for it. We had an unexpected $1.4 million transfer in the current fiscal year 20 due to one claim that came up. Just to remain solvent in that fund, had to have an unexpected transfer of $1.4 million. So we have some really serious challenges in that fund that we're going to have to be ready for, and we're staying on top of it. So we can't control it. The legislature controls the laws, and those benefits increase and decrease based on the legislature every 2 years. And so we just have to keep abreast and make sure that we have some reserves in those funds to take care of that. But it is an issue for sure that needs to be watched.
Well, thank you for kind of giving a great overview. I don't think a lot of people really realize how much time and effort we and other entities too put into making sure we get a balanced budget, and that's really important to us. So anything else I missed that maybe you want to add?
I think, one thing I'd like to say is I think we've got this. I have so much trust in the people and the process here at Sparks that even with those large challenges like workers' comp, I don't think we're going to get truly surprised. We've gained control and a real transparency of every aspect of our budget, and we have a set of 6 fiscal policies I forgot to tell you about that kind of govern us and keep us within these lines. And I just think that we are going to stay abreast of the challenges coming. We're ready to meet those challenges, and I think we will.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for the great information, and thank you for watching Spotlight on Sparks.